You ready, spaghetti?
Oh, yeah,
You can tell I'm a mom.
yeah. That's pretty hip lingo you got there.
You're hanging out in the House of Sunny podcast, where it's always sunny, mostly because of your host, comedian and YouTuber, Sunny Loman. Want to know what Sunny and her friends are thinking about this week? Well, here she is, Sunny Loman.
Welcome to the House of Sunny podcast, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're back. I don't know how long we've been gone, a couple of months. And I'm here with Doug from The Rational Capitalist. What's going on, Doug?
Hello there. How are you doing?
Great. We haven't talked at all, since I was gone.
I
And kind of
know.
on purpose, I didn't want to call you and chit-chat and go through everything before we did this podcast. So we haven't talked about my trip or anything.
Right. I
I
don't know anything.
for the audience, I went to Europe. I went to France for a wedding. I was actually in the wedding, and then I left there and went to England. So I have kind of thoughts on that. And I can't go anywhere without everything being political in my brain, which is sort of sad, but I do there's always a part of me paying attention to the consequences of the global political situation. So I have some thoughts on that, which I'll get into. And I can talk about French weddings and how fun they are.
Well, and you managed to burn down
I
one
did.
of the most historic
Oops.
buildings in Western civilization.
Yeah. Sad,
Way
huh?
to, way to go.
Yeah, thanks. They haven't
High
caught me
five.
yet. They haven't caught me yet.
I was going to say you got out.
They're looking at an electrical short or construction damage. So they haven't figured it out yet.
No, they're not even close to your trail at this point.
Right. I did a pretty good job covering my tracks. I think my cigarette butt burned up in the inferno. So
Oh, it's terrible.
it is terrible. I was actually one of the last people there. You know what I mean?
Really?
Well, yeah, I was there the week before. I mean, not even the week before, days before.
Yeah.
I
Did you
was
actually go through it and stuff, or
no.
did you just look at
It's
it?
so funny because we were outside and then I was like, hey, let's go in. I've been inside. It's been, I don't know, 10 years since I've been inside. And there was just such a crowd. We
Hmm.
just kind of took pictures at the outside and said, we'll do it another time. And I'm just heartbroken.
Yeah, like the
Whoops. I
smart.
thought this 900-year-old structure would be around in a couple of years when I'm back, but
Yeah.
apparently not.
Good thinking.
Yeah.
They always say never put off.
What you can do, I know, but the crowds in Paris were ridiculous. It was actually, it made for some unpleasant, some other unpleasant experiences. I've
So
never
you go
seen it like that. So,
really?
yeah.
Well, I mean, it's always going to have. There's always going to be
No, I mean,
crowd.
I've been there twice. I've been there in April and June in the
Hmm.
past, and it was not that crowded.
Hmm. Were you there
So,
on a weekend?
no, we arrived there on Sunday and we were there through Wednesday. So, we were in Fontainebleau before that for the wedding. Then we went to Paris on Sunday afternoon. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, Sunday should have been crowded, but I went to Musée d'Orsay, which is near the Louvre. It's kind of a smaller museum near the Louvre.
Hmm.
And went there. It's usually a really great museum, usually kind of quiet. And of course, I think that was Monday or Tuesday I went there. Maybe it was Wednesday. I can't remember. But one of those slow days, Tuesday, it was probably Tuesday. And the Louvre happened to be closed that day. So all the Louvre traffic, which the Louvre is a huge museum, all of that traffic came over to this small museum and it was just brutal. Brutal.
Oh my God.
Big mistake.
All the people just desperate to see a painting.
Yeah, and they don't even. Yeah, yeah. I won't even speak about that. But
Well, back up a second though. So
okay.
you go to France to be in a wedding, which is interesting. Like
Yeah. So
what was that like?
so this was the wedding of my first au pair. We had a French au pair a few years ago when Lucia was a year and a half, and the au pair program, people probably think that it's because I'm rich, and it is, but no, I'm not rich. It's when you're ill, you have to have reliable childcare. And I have a very small child. So it has been an absolute necessity for my family to have a person living in our house that helps us, and we don't really have family. So,
Especially when you're a sick rich person,
well,
then you definitely need an au pair.
you make sacrifices. You do what you have to do. So we've had an au pair since Lucia was like 1.5 years old, and our first one was French, Fanny, and she got married. She when she was here, she met an American, and they fell in love. And she's like, she's French. She's like, I'm going home. She doesn't want to live in. She doesn't want to be an American.
Oh, really? So she met an American, and this guy wants to live in France?
No. He's in the wine industry. I mean, so he can't leave Napa. I suppose he could live in French wine country, but that industry over there is really closed. Like, you can't break into the French wine industry like you can in the American wine industry. So we're talking a very old industry over there with a lot of regulation and old families. And I mean, there's just no entrepreneurial spirit in the French wine industry.
There's not like a Silicon Valley of wine,
right?
Where a bunch of young kids get together and put up some
in France, no,
fresh new grapevines and like kick out all the old guys. No?
Right. All the old curmudgeon-y winemakers. So, so he has to live here. So anyway, I mean, they fall in love, and she's like, I'm going home. My life is in France. And she goes home, and they're both just devastated because they're in love, And she leaves in like October, and he went over there at Christmas and proposed. So she's living here now. She moved back here, but she wanted to get married in France because her family's there, and her best friends.
Yeah. Oh,
so
totally. Of course.
We went over there for the wedding.
Weddings are more for the women.
Yeah, right.
So
but actually, what was so cool was, so really the bride's side was all French except for my family. The flower girl was my daughter. I was a bridesmaid, which I'm too old to be a bridesmaid. That's a whole nother story. And then my significant other walked her down the aisle.
Oh.
Because she doesn't have like a father figure. So he's really become a father figure to her. And so we were full on in this wedding, and everyone else was French and didn't speak English very well. And then on the groom's...
Well, where was this guy's family? Where was
that's
the
what I was
husband?
just going to say. On the groom's side, everyone's American. And they all came. Like all of his best friends and their wives. And it was a huge group of Americans. I couldn't believe how nice it was that they all went overseas for a wedding. I just thought that was really spoke well.
I mean, I had my wedding in Vegas, and I got like 3 people to show up. I mean, maybe that says something about me, but
I think it does say something about you.
Definitely.
But, and maybe it says something about having a fabulous trip to France, but it's not cheap to go over there and stay there in a hotel. And, it was expensive, and all of those people went. So that was really cool. And, yeah, I was a bridesmaid, and I'm sitting there in this Amazon dress. I freaking hate
Amazon dress.
Bridesmaid dresses are just the worst. And this one was from Amazon.com.
Oh, I thought you meant like it was some sort of style.
No.
You meant like Amazon.com. Okay.
I'm sorry, Fanny, if you're listening, but I've never felt good about any bridesmaid dress I've ever worn. It's a cliche, but it's true. Right, ladies out there? There's not a bridesmaid dress on the planet I've ever heard a woman say, oh, yeah, I like that dress, and I wore it another time.
Right. Yeah, that's usually horrible.
Oh, they're horrible. And they're usually, like, the wrong color for your skin. And, it's like... Anyway, and everyone around me is speaking French, including the photographer. And they're, like, telling us where to pose and what to do. And I don't understand. So I'm like just sitting there like a doofus, and I suddenly see all the girls like going and doing something, and I'm like, wait, what am I supposed to do?
I thought you spoke a little French, no?
Well, a little, but that's not enough to like understand the rapid fire instructions of a photographer, or
Right.
the sort of mumbled whispers of the girls as they're just like, there was at one point I'm sitting there, I'm putting on lipstick or something, and I turn around and everybody's gone, and I didn't know.
They
Where-
ditched you.
Where'd the other bridesmaids go?
They yelled
And
ditch in French.
They were gone. They got some job and they went and were doing the job, and didn't know. So I'm like, they probably think I'm a jerk. Like, oh, Sunny didn't come. She's just sitting there. And I'm like, I don't even know where they went.
Wow.
So that was kind of funny. But then the wedding itself was, oh my God, it was at this old chateau with a moat. The thing was built in like 1100 something. I mean, it was this, and it was beautifully remodeled. Like, it was a castle. I felt like a princess. And our room was unbelievably beautiful, and it was cheap. Like, it wasn't even that much. I think I paid 180 euro for this beautiful room in a chateau, and with like an extra bedroom, and because I had my whole family there. So it was beautiful. It was just gorgeous. And then the wedding happened at 4, and French weddings go forever. It's like a 12-hour deal.
What?
So the wedding was at 4, and then
You mean the
dinner.
whole day, not the ceremony or whatever?
No. The ceremony was brief, but I don't even really understand how. So we all then head to the reception room, and we're just there hanging out with hors d'oeuvres for like 2 hours, and then dinner wasn't served until 8:30,
Yeah.
and then it went till 4 in the morning.
Oh my God.
The cake cutting was at like midnight.
Oh God.
I mean, just completely different, right?
How many people were at this?
Maybe 100 people.
So what, like, set the scene then? Like, was it you know how most American weddings are in some hotel ballroom type
Right.
deal? Was this
Yeah, it was kind of
something
like
else?
that. It was it's the chateau, and then they had this outbuilding. The chateau itself was on a golf course, and then they had like a clubhouse that had been built later. So the wedding was outside overlooking the chateau, and then the reception was in this clubhouse, like a ballroom kind of.
Did they have a DJ like pumping out the
Totally
jams?
had
Or
a DJ pumping out the jams. First a playlist, and then
Nice.
the DJ came. There was a lot of dancing, and there were games. They play like these party games
No way.
with a crowd of 100, 150 people.
They have a pinata?
It wasn't like a piñata. It was like, like I got a card that said I had to go I had to find this person on the card. I just had the name. I had to find that person and go to the photo booth and take a photo with them. And then there was a hint about who that person was. And like on and on, games like that, where games designed to make people interact.
Sounds horrible.
It was so fun.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it was really fun. I mean, normally you go to a wedding and you're kind of fucking bored, and you're like, "Meh, I have to just sit here and
Yeah.
they're
Go
done.
through the motions.
You're done by 10:30.
Well, it depends on how much you drink and how young you are and whether
Yeah,
the
right.
bridesmaids are hot.
I have to admit, I did not stay up for the cake, and most of what I'm telling you, I saw on video.
Come on.
Well,
This
I
is-
mean, I'm kind of sick still. I'm a
Yeah.
lot better, but there's no way I could stay up till 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
I stayed up as late as I did because of the time change. So, luckily,
This is like the old person's version of this wedding. I'm sure the young kids that were there have a totally different version of it.
probably.
You know, you're like, we played games and it was a lot of fun. And the young kids are like, yeah, this chick was there. Blah, blah, we got
Right.
wasted. Blah, 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 you know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. People were drinking, and there was a lot of really good food, a lot of foie gras, lots of foie gras
Really? That's,
in like 10 different kinds. I mean, it was really good, really
so,
delicious.
but now does the groom fluent in French? Did he have to say oui,
he's
oui?
not fluent.
On the,
He's pretty good though. That's how he met Fanny. He actually, she and another French au pair friend of hers decided to go to a meetup of Americans who were learning French, who who wanted to get together to speak French. And
Ah,
it was conducted by a local professor, a local French teacher who was doing this side group. And Chris had happened to take that guy's class just as a like a an older student or whatever. And so he goes to this meetup, and Fanny and Camille, these two cute French girls, decide to go and help the Americans with their French,
right.
just for fun and to meet Americans.
Of course. Boy, it sounds like a movie.
Yeah, and
So that's pretty cool.
So he can speak a little French, and he lived over there for like 2 months in the wine country area, working in some sort of internship on a vineyard. So
Were the French people nice to you, or were they like French people?
at the wedding,
Yeah, at the wedding. Were they pretty?
they some were like French people, like there was a waitress that was so rude. But even it's funny about French people and French rudeness, because they're rude to French people also. They're not just Americans think they're only rude to them.
Oh.
But these rude French people are just rude people, and they're just a lot of them. And I think that's the difference. Like,
Yeah.
I watched this French waitress be really rude to the bridesmaid party that got up and had breakfast one morning, and she was just so rude and to the point that the bridesmaid like took her in the back and yelled at her, and I'm like listening to this coming through the door.
So even the French people were offended by the level of
Yes.
rudeness. That's
But then they come out and they just shrug. It's like, yeah, we deal with this all the time.
wow.
So,
Well, that's not too bad.
because everybody there, once you're hired, you can't be fired.
Oh, of course.
Like
Ugh,
it's
gross.
worse than here. I mean, you really can't be fired. And so it's, people are afraid to hire people. So a lot of places are really understaffed because they're just so afraid of hiring people because you're stuck with them.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the people are just jerks because they don't have to provide good customer service.
Yeah, I love that idea that, well, you can't fire me, so I'm gonna be a jerk. Like, it's just, isn't it uncomfortable to be a jerk? I mean, even if you can be, like, I love that there's this class of people that are like, woohoo, I can be an asshole
Well,
just
I
'cause
mean,
I can.
I guess it is a class of people. It's a certain kind of person because not everyone's rude.
Right.
And they're in an environment where they can be rude if they want to. They really won't suffer. The only consequence they would suffer is in relationships. And yeah, I mean, it's not like there aren't rude people in America, but there just seem to be a lot more there. And I think it's because of that employment law.
Were the people nice to you, though, for the most part?
You mean the people in the wedding, like her friends?
Yeah.
Yeah, for the most part.
Okay, they didn't look. So were they concerned that she's marrying an American? I mean, was that kind of a
No,
weird thing, or
no.
they don't care?
Yeah, no. I mean, they're really pretty nice people. And I really enjoyed meeting her mother, who didn't speak any English. And she was so warm and communicative without words. Lots of hugs and long stares into my eyes, like.
Nice.
Yeah, she's just so sweet. And then we go over to her house, and she has this obsession with this singer called Claude Francois. And like a teenager, she has posters of this guy everywhere in the house, pictures, framed photos of Claude Francois.
Wait, is this an older guy,
Yeah.
like a crooner type dude, or what?
I think he was big in the 70s based on his hairstyle, which is kind of this feathered
nice.
blonde hairstyle and tight.
So he's kind of like a
tight
French
pants.
lounge singer,
Yeah.
crooner type dude, and she
And
loves
she
him.
is
That's
so in love
great.
with this guy. And Fanny said, yeah, she knew everyone was coming over to her house. And after Fanny moved out and moved to the States, she said, now I can put up all my pictures of Claude Francois and I don't care what people say. She's just like doing it.
So great.
Yeah, it's
I'm
so
gonna have to
great.
YouTube this guy now.
I know, you have to do it. And actually, I was thinking, I'm practicing drawing right now. I was thinking about drawing her a picture of this guy and sending it to her,
Oh, absolutely.
just as a practice for me and as kind of fun for her, because she's so into this dude.
Yeah, you better get it right though.
I don't think it has to be too right. Anyway, so yeah, that was really fun. And then we left there and we went to Paris, and the like I said, the crowds were kind of rough.
So you go. I saw your picture on Facebook where you're at the Eiffel Tower, and you
Yeah,
were
so that's what I was
like,
just going to talk
"This is
about
a
next.
shit show."
Well, the Eiffel Tower is actually in the middle of typical French garden. It gets, with if you've ever been to or seen pictures of Versailles, where you have these long grassy boulevards and
Yeah,
hedgerows and stuff.
yeah. I was
So
there, and when I was there, this is probably over 10 years ago. It was like totally wide open, like no
yeah,
problem.
right.
It was beautiful. You walk in
It's
these gigantic
beautiful.
fields, and
Usually there are people
yeah,
laying on blankets, dotting the whole grassy area because they're, like lovers laying on a blanket, students, um, all kind of in the shade of the Eiffel Tower. It's a really beautiful park, and that is destroyed, just destroyed. The Eiffel Tower is surrounded by thick bulletproof glass or like rusted metal, high metal fencing,
oh,
like our border wall. Like it looks like that iron. Like I don't know what that's made out of, but it's like
I
that
was
sort of
told that walls don't work, so why would they
right,
put?
right, right. Build the wall. In this case, I'm against the wall
Yeah, what's going on?
because if you have to build a wall within your country, Jesus Christ, you're
Well,
in
the French are
trouble.
famous. Remember the Maginot Line and World? I mean, the French are famous for trying to build the walls to keep the bad guys out. But so anyway, so you go to this thing and there's like, what
Well,
was
and
it
then
all around the whole thing, or was it
the
just around
whole
the
thing. Oh
line?
no, the whole thing. And then you have to stand in line and go through rigorous security just to get in within this enclosure.
Oh
And
my
then
God.
within the enclosure is just under the tower. And that's where you can buy a ticket to go to the top and stuff like that. So I think it's probably designed to protect the tower itself, but also any tourists or people. I'm sure there have been a lot of threats.
Yeah,
And
sure.
instead of dealing with the fact that they've got a Muslim problem there, they're just going to wall the Eiffel Tower up and really destroy it in a way that I just felt like, the only way to enjoy this Eiffel Tower is to go in it now. Like it's only about going to the top now because it's not enjoyable to be there at
Yeah.
all. There's nowhere to sit and hang out. There's no garden walking. There's no sitting and enjoying the tower.
Yeah.
It's
If you made a modern romantic movie about it, like the couple would be, going over to the Eiffel Tower like wide-eyed and excited, and then they wait in a line around a bulletproof enclosure for like
yeah,
2.5 hours to get to the top, right?
yeah. That's what
Yeah,
it's
so
like. And I'm glad. So we went up to the top, and I've never actually been inside it. I only ever came and just sort of hung out around it.
yeah.
We went up to the top. I'm glad I did that. I'll never be back. I will never go back to the Eiffel Tower because it's just not pleasant. Just not pleasant. Unless you're going to the very top, it's not worth seeing at all.
Yeah.
And that is such a shame. And I felt like, what exactly are you even protecting anymore? And I think I wrote a public post on this on my personal. Maybe I should just read it to everybody because it was actually my most shared post that I've ever written on my personal profile.
Ooh.
I get shared on my professional profile a lot, but usually I don't get shared like on my personal profile because I don't write stuff for sharing really. I just kind of post pictures of my kid. Nobody would share pictures of someone else's kid.
No one really cares about your kid.
um, Let me read this thing if I can find it here.
Not you individually, but just people. People post pictures of their kids
Well,
and
I
no one
like
really
seeing other
cares.
people's pictures, but I don't share a picture of your child, Doug. That would be creepy and weird. So, let's see. Where did it go? I actually posted this while I was there. Here we go. And then, so after I post this long rant about how ruined the Eiffel Tower is, then 2, 3 days later, Notre Dame burns down.
Yeah, man.
And I just think France is gone. It's just a hopeless loss.
So when you were there, okay, because you've been there in the past, was the presence of the
Yes.
immigration inflow completely noticeable?
You know, it was, I mean, we were in like the typical tourist areas. So, you know, we weren't like, I don't know. There are neighborhoods you can't go into. You can't go
Yeah.
into. And of course, we weren't in those neighborhoods. But what I saw that I couldn't believe were how many cops, like caravans of cops, like a 8 bus caravan full of what looked like soldiers,
Wow.
and many of these all over Paris.
Okay, so how much of this was the yellow vest
Let me
stuff too?
describe. Well, I think a lot of it actually. That's what I was told when
Okay.
I asked about it. That it's Macron nervous about the yellow vest stuff. But picture that for a second. You're imagine you're in New York, and you see, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 busloads of soldiers just parked in a row,
Ugh.
with many of them outside the things just standing there waiting. And every 6 blocks or so, you see a similar caravan of soldiers. And then sometimes you hear them go by, like the sirens, and then they all go by. These busloads of soldiers. That was really weird. Okay, here's the post. I said, I am devastated to report how unspeakably ruined the Eiffel Tower environment is now that you have to view it through bulletproof glass and stand in security lines forever just to get under it. There is a beautiful, typically French walkway, garden, and grassy area that stretches off a distance from the tower. It used to be filled with young lovers and tourists sitting in the grass near the tower. It is now empty. I assume because the view is now transformed into ugly barricades and bulletproof glass, and you can't wander from that grassy park into the garden anymore. I'm not exaggerating. It is destroyed. This is the last time I will bother to go there in my lifetime. It would be better if they had blown it up. It reeks of sad, sad desperation and surrender. Just really, really awful.
Yeah, I like your last line, surrender.
I mean, you have to wall off your Eiffel Tower. Like, you got a problem, dude. You know? They have
Yeah.
a problem. It's like, well, let's not face it. Let's just put a wall up. Crazy. Anyway, so we left Paris, went to England. I rode the train. I rode the Channel. And Calais was kind of interesting as we entered Calais, which is where all the African refugees are. Triple barbed wire fencing next to the railroad.
Wow.
3 layers of barbed wire fence. I'm not kidding.
Man.
To prevent people from getting to the train.
Jesus.
And, you know, if that means to hop a ride, they're trying to get to England, I think. The people in Calais. I'm not really sure. Anyway, so took the Channel, arrived in England, went to Windsor immediately. I didn't do London at all. I just decided I didn't have the stamina. And just went to Windsor, which is where the Queen lives, where Windsor Castle is. I think she has many homes, but Windsor is her home. And that's kind of where she is every weekend. And it was
Well, who lives in Buckingham Palace?
I'm not sure. I think she also lives there. That's where like a lot of state business is conducted in
Okay.
town. That's in London. I think that
By the way, my knowledge of the royal family extends to questions about Buckingham Palace.
Okay.
That's all I know.
Got it. I
So
think
I had to ask
I
it.
think and I'm probably going to get corrected here. I think William and Kate live in Buckingham Palace. I think Harry and Meghan did, but now they're living near Windsor, in their own place, which is just, they call it a cottage, but it's like a palace. And yeah, so touring Windsor was really fun. It's a working castle, you know?
Really?
And the Queen was there when I was there. And it was really fun and interesting. I got to walk over the tomb of Henry VIII because it's just on the floor under the chapel.
Wow.
There's like a stone that you walk over. It says Henry VIII. This is where
Wow.
this is where he is.
That's crazy.
It's
That's
so
really
cool.
Yeah.
So the history was really, the thing was built and started building, I think, around 1100.
I remember you saying in one of your posts that the people that the the docents, I guess they're not docents, it's not a museum, but the guides or whatever are really, really passionate
Oh, you couldn't
and
believe it.
interested.
I've never seen, I mean, in America, we don't know our history, you know? And then in France, they hate themselves. So it was such a breath of fresh air because, oh my God, like you go through these major tourist attractions and there must be hundreds of people working there. And every single person that you asked with one of the jackets that indicated they worked there, if you had a question, first of all, they were super friendly, like just ready to help. And they knew everything about the history of England. Like, all of a sudden, they're telling you way more than you even care about. Like,
Yeah,
they're just so into it that they are telling you everything. And you're like, okay, I had one simple question. I really didn't need to know all of this.
yeah.
But they love it. And unlike France, the flag is flying everywhere. Everything is plastered with the British flag and the various British symbols, like the tall hat soldier and the double decker buses, and like there's just a ton of pride in their country.
So this
And
wasn't just Windsor Castle now.
not well, I mean, I was in Windsor the whole time, but I went to three other, is it three or two? Two other palaces, and they're the same way. There's just a real English pride, English tea, English flag, English gardens, English queen, English royalty, English hunting, English wool, English, like, there's
Yeah.
Scottish wool, Scottish plaid, like everything is like all
It's
of
hard for us
these.
to relate to that, especially around the royal, the royal family. Americans are real cynical and snarky about their royalty, and they're super serious about it. And now you kind of know why. You see it in person, like how passionate and how real that is, their feelings and emotions towards the royalty and the English history and everything.
They know the most obscure facts. They're the docents, the people. I don't know if you'd even call them docents. Like, it's a security guard standing there with a little badge around his neck, just standing there making sure everybody's moving along and nothing's getting stolen. And that person knows everything about what they're looking at. And it just and is excited to tell you about it. you know?
Hmm.
It was so cute. And it felt really good. And actually, it feels like, unfortunately, Americans are kind of ignorant of their history, but it's the same sentiment and feeling you get when you're around patriotic Americans.
Hmm.
They just love their
Well, I went to
country.
Independence
And
Hall in Philly, and the people there really knew it. I mean, they were really into it and passionate too. So, the
yeah,
handful of times I've seen some American memorials or um, monuments or whatever, the people that work in those places tend to be pretty good.
so it gave me hope about Britain. I mean, I know they've got big problems too, and they're really in danger of going the way of France. But
Hmm.
unlike the French, they're not apologetic for themselves. So I think there's hope there.
Do we think the Yellow Vest movement are those good guys? I mean, do we know
I
much about that?
I know a little about it. I think it's mixed, and that's the problem. It's general unrest, and a lot of it is people on pensions who don't feel like they make enough money. I mean, when you have people who are on welfare of some kind, who are dependent on the state for their medical care,
Yeah.
and it sucks because that's what socialist healthcare is. It sucks. And they don't even know it sucks because they've never had an alternative. Like, I just shared on Facebook this morning. I'll share this on my professional page too. I came across a post by a group. It's a bill for a tonsillectomy from 1949, and it's $26. The whole thing. So
I was
I did
I went
an
to the birth thing
I did an
like
inflation
that.
adjustment, $240 for a tonsillectomy. And it's really hasn't the procedure hasn't advanced that much in 70 years since this bill was produced. And even if it had, like, I'd be willing to pay twice that much. But you know, a tonsillectomy today probably costs 15 grand.
Well, yeah, an ounce of gold in 49 was about $40. So about half of that would be about $600 today. So your inflation adjustment is probably about right.
Yeah.
A couple $100.
But even, okay, let's not even just, without taking into account the theft of our wealth through inflation, just the fact that you can even get a bill with the number. And then the normal inflation would take the $26 to like $300 maybe. And but today it wouldn't even be $300. It would be thousands and thousands of dollars to get a tonsillectomy because of all the regulation and involvement of the government in our healthcare. And it's like, if we forget this, we don't realize how bad it is. And I think that, like, people with socialized medicine in France and England, they go, oh my God, I can't imagine not having the state pay for my medical care. That would just be awful. But they don't realize, like, if a tonsillectomy is $26, is it really so bad that you have to pay for your own medical care?
Right.
No, it's not bad. This is like, we've created a monster.
It would sort of be like if shoes were controlled by the government and suddenly shoes sucked and they cost like $8,000 a pair. You'd be like, God, I can't imagine if the government didn't buy me shoes. What would I ever do?
Well, yeah, and it's so easy over time. One generation almost is often what it takes to forget. I've even forgotten, like, how comedy was before Barack Obama, and how fucking free it was, and how we could make. You and I were talking the other day about racist humor.
Yeah.
And how we used to be. I posted I gotta post this stuff on my professional page, but there was this thing I posted where white and black people were making fun of each other on a post. And it was all good-natured. It was all really funny.
Yeah, because a black woman who's got a big following said something like, hey, black people, like, here's your chance. Ask white people a question.
Right.
And it was like all these black people asking white people, like, hey, what's up with this? Like, why do you guys do this? And it was just hilarious.
And when you read it, you feel good. Like, I mean, here are a bunch of black people making fun of white people, and it made me feel really good. And normally I don't feel good about black people making fun of white people anymore because they don't let me make fun of them.
Right.
And so normally it makes me feel kind of pissed. But reading this, I laughed really hard. It made me feel good about people again. And I thought, this is the power of comedy. And this is why it is so important to make fun of each other and why nothing should be off limits. And that part of the reason why race relations are getting worse is because we can't joke around about it.
Right.
And this is all just pre-Obama normal. And since Obama, we really, and people don't remember how great race relations were before Obama was elected.
Yeah, it's funny if you go on YouTube and watch comedy, just something from 7 years ago, even 5 years ago, but especially like 2006 or 1998 or something, my jaw drops open because the things people were willing to say and could say
just
casually, and it was no big deal. Everyone, yeah, whatever,
right.
Retard or some word like that that's not politically correct anymore. This was just like commonplace.
Right.
And Chris Rock used to do sets, making fun of black people, making fun of white people. Eddie Murphy, Dave Chappelle, all these great comedians that was a huge part of their bit, was making fun of other black people. And black people howling and laughing about it.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if a black person could do a set today making fun of other black, the sensitivity level is so high.
Chris Rock doesn't do that anymore.
Hysterical.
If you've seen Chris Rock's new material, he never does that anymore.
Really?
And Dave Chappelle has said, remember when Dave Chappelle came out and was just like, he did a SNL monologue that was not hardcore leftist. It was like more moderate. And I think he had a joke against Obama that was something about Obama raising his taxes. Dude, I'm a rich man. You raised my taxes, It was just like that. It wasn't even like anything moral or, it was just like a stupid tax thing. And he got so much shit for that. And I think he said something like, Trump's all right. And he got
Oh my
so much
gosh.
shit
Can't say
about
that.
that at his next comedy special, he opened by making jokes about how much shit he got and apologizing.
Oh no.
Like I was really sad to see Dave Chappelle like give in to the mob like that, but he did. He's like, dude, don't think I'm a Trump supporter. Now let me do 15 jokes on why Trump sucks.
Oh
Yeah,
man.
it was really
The
stupid.
worst. God.
And even if you're not a Trump fan, I think you can agree that's lame. And so yeah, it's off limits, and it is creating an us and them vibe. And even like there's this old sketch on SNL that Eddie Murphy did where he put on whiteface and he goes around town and
Yes.
like he's treated differently and but in an extreme way. People are handing him money, like
Yeah.
briefcases of money.
Yeah, he wanted
And-
to figure out what is it really like to be a white guy. So he
Yeah.
puts on white face and he's going to a bank and they're just
They
giving
just
him
give him,
money.
oh, you want a loan? How about $1 million? Here, take it. And he's
You
like,
don't have to
well,
pay it
don't
back.
you want to see my, no, that's not necessary. You're white. And it goes on and on like this, where like this behind the scenes where, you know, like he goes to the maitre d' and says, I'd like a table. And he's like, oh, no need to, you know, and he ushers him through and takes him into like the other restaurant through the
So-
curtain that's just for people where like there's money sitting on the table and gold being showered on him and like there's like these secret underground things just for white people that he gets access to, and it's over the top and it's hilarious. And
One of the most
today-
one of the most brilliant things I've ever seen on SNL.
yeah, brilliant. And today I think if a modern black comedian did that today, I think it would make me uncomfortable because I feel like they hate me.
Yeah, if it was because that was in the spirit, it was in a different spirit. Like
Yeah.
now it would be probably very dark and very,
Yeah.
It wouldn't have the same sort of funny vibe to it.
Yeah, I know Eddie Murphy doesn't hate white people when he's,
Yeah.
and I know he's not serious, and I can laugh that there might be some benefits to being white when you walk into it. You know, I can laugh and say, yeah, that's probably true, and you know, we can like sort of agree. But nowadays, it's like white people are so vilified, white privilege, and
Yes, it's become metaphysical
that
now.
I feel philosophically so opposed to those sentiments that I couldn't really laugh at that same sketch done by a modern angry black comedian.
No.
But you know, or anyway, so I think it's really important to remember what things used to be like before they sucked, and that's key to convincing people to change. It's so easy, and it's so easy to forget stuff even just from 10 years ago. How much things cost or what it was like to have insurance before Obamacare. How much less paperwork and how many fewer rules and how much lower your deductible was. And I had zero deductible insurance. I had a pre-existing condition and I had zero deductible insurance. How is, that was on the free market.
Yeah, when I was in my 20s, I had a basic hospital surgical where it didn't cover anything unless you had a really serious problem. You had to go to a hospital. And it was like 30 or 40 bucks a month. And it covered me to $1 million.
Yeah.
That was it. I was like, okay, that's all I need.
I
I'm
had
young.
that same thing. I was 25. I paid $35 a month for like catastrophic insurance. And I picked a deductible of $4,000 or $5,000 or something like that. Cause I thought, well, I mean, I was young, so that would hurt me, but it wouldn't crush me.
Yeah. It's like, what can I
yeah.
deal with?
Or,
Yeah,
with help
exactly.
from friends and family, what could I deal with? Well, I picked 5,000 and I could have gotten 10,000. I could have been paying $15 a month,
Right. Right. Not anymore.
But not anymore. And the other thing that people are dealing with, if you're sick and you know this, and healthy people don't know this, I've said this on the podcast before, insurance companies have stopped paying. So even what they're obligated to pay for, they don't pay it. And it's up to you to appeal and go through these long processes with all the things that are happening to you. Imagine that you're sick and you have a stack of bills 2 feet high.
Yeah.
And for each one, you have to go do, 4 hours of work on
No,
it.
we have people have to understand we have socialized medicine now. It's just fascistic because it's administered through
Yeah, we have
heavily
rationing
regulated. It's administered through heavily regulated insurance companies.
I
They're
am
essentially the government.
I am denied medication that costs. Right now, I'm in a fight over a medication that I would like to take because the one that I'm taking that works for me, the side effects are unpleasant for me. It's actually like daily pain. So it's not nothing. It's like I have a daily myalgia all over my body from this medicine. But it's worth it because I'm otherwise healthy, and so I just kind of deal with that. Oh, and it's causing a heart problem too, which I have to take now, a little tiny pill for that. So I need to get off this medication. I want to take this other medication. It's $90,000 a year, and it's approved for my condition. My insurance company denied it. My doctor, we appealed it. My doctor, we went so far as peer-to-peer. And that doctor that my doctor spoke to, this is supposed to be a process where one doctor speaks to another and explains, this is why it's medically necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And in that process, she said to him, there's under no circumstances can I approve this drug. It's just not approvable for her.
What?
And it's arbitrary.
Oh my God.
Because it's too expensive, they don't want to pay it. And basically they're saying, sue us.
Yeah.
And you
right.
could win, but you'll have to sue us.
Yeah,
And
good luck
most
with
people
that.
won't sue. I'm sure I could win, but what am I going to do in the meantime? Be sick? It's going to take me 5 years and some lawyer a lot of time and money in advance before I get my payout. In the meantime, I'm dead.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's what's happening behind the scenes. That's the game they're playing. And I think it's worse than single payer.
Yeah.
But because, I'm also, I'm on boards online and stuff where people from the UK have the same condition and they aren't fighting these battles.
No, and this is exactly what they wanted. And they knew that this,
Yeah.
I mean, we said, how many years ago have we been saying all roads lead to socialized medicine?
Right.
Because the more the government gets involved, the worse it's going to get, to the point where it's so complicated, so convoluted, and the quality deteriorates to such a point where people say, just let the government take it over.
That's right. And we are at that point. We're getting there, and it's going to happen. Or we have to fight really, really hard to free up medicine and free it up. But the only way I think to convince people is to remind people what it used to be like. We have to get rid of these controls and regulations and get back to a free market. $26 tonsillectomy, folks. Right?
Yep. Yeah, and it's happened so gradually, like you said, and that's the genius of the left.
Yeah.
Is they're always willing to take a baby step towards something like that because they know, or even if they don't know, at some level they understand that these baby steps eventually lead to what they want. And now the scary thing is that liberating medicine from these regulations and from the government and from insurance is not even thinkable. Even the Republicans now are on got to have pre-existing conditions.
You're right, exactly.
That is the purpose of insurance is to insure people who don't have pre-existing conditions. So,
what they have to do, because they've screwed it up now. They've screwed it up in just 1 year. And this was the key, is when all of us with pre-existing conditions, myself included, I had good insurance. As long as I kept paying it, I was covered. But they've destroyed that, and I had to have new insurance.
So now you have to start over again.
So if Obamacare ends and I lose my current insurance, which I would because it's it's Obamacare written insurance, and I don't want to pay this much money and have this high of a deductible, and anyway, this insurance would go away. I'd have to buy a new plan, and it wouldn't cover pre-existing conditions because it shouldn't.
Right.
So now
So
what
now
do
you're
I
stuck.
do?
Now
Yeah,
you're dependent.
they have screwed every sick person in this country if we ever go free market. And what they have to do now, I have a plan.
Nice.
Hey, everybody, I have a plan. They have to go back to a full free market for everybody else except sick people. And sick people need to get a flat out tax credit for their medical costs. And by that, I mean you submit your receipts and the government pays you back. And maybe you do this regularly, because honestly, I really couldn't afford to even.
No, you'd have to have a plan.
It has to be like a subsidy, because, and then anyone who gets a new, and it's pre-existing condition today, then it's up to you. You have to go get insurance to prevent getting a pre-existing condition and being stuck. This is not a program forever. This is a program for people who have a pre-existing condition today and who are going to lose their insurance if we go back to a free market. And it's just a cash welfare benefit. I don't see any way around that.
No, you'd have to have some sort of phase in, phase out type plan. But this is exactly the kind of thing that...
And you wouldn't even regulate it. You would submit your receipt and it would get reimbursed. And I don't think it should be paid through the government. I think it should be paid through the IRS somehow. Do you know what I mean? Through a reimbursement program of some kind.
Yeah, you don't have to pay tax until all of your medical expenses. But more than that,
the child income tax credit where they actually pay you money for your children.
Yeah.
It would have to be a credit like that where they actually pay it out, because right now it would cost me, I don't know, $200,000-$300,000 a year to pay for my medical care.
Yeah, it's sort of like the Milton Friedman idea where if it's negative, then you get a credit back. So if you're in the hole, effectively you get some sort of welfare subsidy,
right.
for it.
And I don't think that would actually, I think that would actually cost a lot less than what they're proposing in state-run medical care.
Well, just think if you could liberate a large portion of the market and then just deal with these extraneous cases.
That's right.
Then instead of, trillions of dollars, it becomes like a statewide, actually like a statewide program that you need to manage until you can phase people out of it over time.
Right. And they need to liberate medicine to the point that it becomes cheap. Because
exactly.
And so that also means getting rid of the FDA.
So then costs are going down at the same time you're trying to phase people in and out of these entitlements or subsidies. Then prices are coming down. Yeah. Care's going up. I mean, this is exactly what these people need to be working on and debating and doing. And instead, we've got they're trying to get Trump's tax returns. I mean, that's what's so frustrating about our current situation, is that there's no light at the end of the tunnel. You can get 5 smart people together that could say, hey, we could fix this in a week. And, we're years away from, what's on the horizon. Bernie Sanders and AOC against Trump. I mean, this is what we have.
It is so creepy watching the Democrats right now. Watching their hardcore left lurch.
Yeah, they're trying to out-socialist each other.
Oh my God. And it's only going to get worse, I think. Hang on, I'm looking for a lozenge.
Did you see that Bernie and the other candidates, I think it was last night or the night before, on CNN, were advocating allowing felons to vote?
Yeah, right. Well, of course. They want Democrats to vote.
Oh my God.
And it's funny that they know that felons are Democrats. How about that, everybody? So yeah, it's an interesting times we live in. I think during this course of this election, I mean, I thought the left lurched really far left when they made Ellison like a deputy. The DNC made Ellison like a deputy chair, and who's a Muslim.
Well, he was running for the chair. Yeah. Right.
And not just a Muslim, but a really gross leftist. I mean, and arguably an alleged, I say alleged, but I believe it, wife beater.
Well, like a Farrakhan.
Yeah, he's a Farrakhan type of Muslim. And so he's deputy, he's in a position of leadership.
I know.
in the Democrat Party, and then now they're being led around by the radicals amongst them, by the AOC and the Ilhan Omar types, and obviously they've become anti-Semitic. They've become
Yeah, that's
very,
cool now.
very. I mean, the Green New Deal, if implemented, would kill. I mean, at least we wouldn't have an immigration problem anymore. You know,
Right, because we wouldn't, well,
the
the whole
Green New
country would
Deal would
collapse.
solve immigration because coming to
Yeah.
the United States would mean death.
Right.
So,
Well, yeah, you couldn't there would be no cows, no planes, and no cars.
no
So I don't think
oil,
anyone would want to
no
come
no
here anymore.
fucking oil, no lights, no heat, no air conditioning. I mean, you're screwed. Go to Mexico. You're going to
Yeah,
have
I think
Americans going to Mexico so they can be in a heated apartment.
exactly.
So it would solve the immigration problem,
It would
but
solve a lot of problems.
people would die, and
It would solve the traffic accident problem because there'd be
yeah,
no
there would
cars.
be no cars. Yeah, people wouldn't die in traffic accidents anymore. It would probably solve the healthcare problem because everybody sick would just die.
You just die at age 30. Like our life expectancy would go back to the cavemen.
That's right.
So,
And
you
and
just
for
split it up.
once, we would be subject to the changes in the weather.
Yes,
The
that's right.
environmentalists,
Would
are
love that.
worried. They're worried about hurricanes and tornadoes, but they would turn humans into being completely
At the mercy of,
vulnerable
yeah.
to Mother Nature. Anyway, so yeah, that's crazy what's going on there, and it's already so far left, and then you just know now they're vying for who can be the most outrageously left. That's what these 24 candidates
Yeah.
for president on the left are doing. It's
Yeah, well,
crazy.
I like how Yang, this guy, was essentially challenging Beto to like skateboard, and this guy, this mayor of Indiana, is gay, and so their battle basically here's their planks right now is the one guy says, "Well, I'm really gay," and then Beto says, "Oh yeah, I can skateboard,"
Like for real, he
and
said that. Are you making this up?
well, I'm essentially paraphrasing what they're. I'm not making it up. I mean, they didn't literally say this to each other, but this is
This is their
essentially their.
platform.
This is really it. I mean,
Yeah.
the guy from Indiana has no policy other than he's gay. Beto's thing is what, that he can skateboard. And Yang said, he came out the other day and said that he was a fan of like the Smiths and the Cure in the 80s.
Okay.
So he was saying he's more woke than Beto because he was a fan of like emo
Uh-huh.
in the 80s.
Oh,
So
these
this is
people
how
are
they're
so pathetic.
so and then he challenged him to a skateboard. So that's how they're trying to one up each other.
Okay, great. So this will be fun. This will be very interesting. I look forward to the SNL sketches making fun of these people.
Uh,
Right?
yeah, don't hold your breath.
Um, Lastly, we'll end on a note. Do you want to talk about the fire at Notre Dame? We sort of touched on it, but it does look like maybe it was an accident. I only say that because no group has come out and claimed responsibility for it, and I feel like they tend to do that when they achieve a victory like this.
Yeah.
So that just says to me the incompetence, you know?
Yeah, it's totally possible. I just don't believe anything because
Yeah,
if
that's
it
what's hard.
were if it were an Islamic attack, then they would have covered it up.
Yeah.
So I just think distrust the media at such a level that I just don't believe anything they say, either for pro or con. And you're right, though. Until one of them takes responsibility, it's a little hard to believe
Even if
that.
it's incompetence, that's bad. I mean, I just think, it just speaks to, first of all, we could never build the cathedral today. We don't even have the technology anymore to build something like that the way that it was built. Um, we don't have the artisans, I guess.
Well, it wouldn't pass the environmentalist
Yeah,
regulations,
right.
probably.
Yeah.
They couldn't get it. It
So,
would take 17 years to get approved.
you can kind of see how people ended up not knowing how to build, like the Romans. Like eventually, like you can see how technology dies. Anyway, I do think it's probably accidental, which isn't, to me, maybe it's a little bit better of a story than if it's a Muslim attack, but
Well, that would be a lot, but I mean, the circumstantial is just that when it happened, it happens Easter week,
that is
and they said
so
that
suspicious.
there was dozens of churches attacked throughout France, is what
Right.
I understood, and then you see the Sri Lanka Easter attack, and just circumstantially, like why it just so happens that it takes place at that time.
Yeah.
Um, it wouldn't shock me, and I tend to believe that it was an attack and that they're covering it up, but I have no evidence of that, nor will
Right.
I really seek it out, nor will it ever come out. I mean, I'm still trying to figure out what happened in Las
I
Vegas,
know, right?
right? And they covered that up, so who knows?
Yeah. It's weird that we live in a time where, I mean, I guess it's been going on for a while. This isn't new, that you can't believe the media and you can't trust the government's narrative. That's been going on in this country since the 50s.
Yeah, at least.
So,
So exactly, I think you just distrust the media,
yeah.
don't believe anything you read, and just try and find,
And wait.
sources.
And that's why Alex Jones is kind of an important person. I think the people who are willing to gather and look at conspiratorial stuff is, I think that's fine.
Right. Well, there are investigative, I mean, there are people that ask the questions. There are YouTubers and just independent sort of citizen journalists that, look at different sources and try and compile and just find facts or contradictions in the reported facts. Say, hey, wait a second. This guy said this and this guy said, how can this both be true? Just people who do that kind of stuff. And a lot of them are being shut down
Right.
by these platforms too. So it's even harder to find people that disagree with the so-called government narrative now. And so it's very frightening because that is the distrust of the media is an absolute prerequisite for protecting liberty and freedom and holding these people accountable. And this idea that there's such a thing as conspiracy theory, as if it's some class of knowledge, and that these authorities somehow can identify the quote unquote conspiracy theory and be able to shut it down. Not only is that impossible and ridiculous and dangerous, but think of how hypocritical it is given what we've just seen with this Russia hoax for 2 years.
Yeah.
Um,
I was going to say, I was going to bring it back to that because this is probably 50%. I mean, besides ideology, this is maybe the number one reason why, besides ideology, that I support Republicans. I think they're mostly losers who don't get anything done and pansy asses.
Yep.
But the media is not on their side. So if they fart, we hear about it.
yeah.
And just look at what Trump's been through. I actually think better of Trump for having been through this kind of detailed investigation and come out with no charges. That means he's probably a pretty clean dude. you know? I mean, if there was anything there, they would have found it.
Of course.
And so we can kind of assume he's actually not very corrupt, which is
Yeah.
weird to say that because, but anyway, so, if Hillary had been elected, we wouldn't know anything about all of the spying they've done on Americans and, in order
right.
to, so I just,
You
I-
wouldn't even have the Me Too movement because remember, Weinstein was a Hillary ally.
yeah,
And you think that would have ever come out if she was president?
yeah, good point.
Uh,
So if you want to know what's going on, vote Republican, even if you don't like them. At least you get transparency.
and they're at least, oddly enough, they're the party now of civil liberties
Right.
because they're the ones who have freshly been attacked and essentially had their civil liberties stripped away, which was the essence of the Brett Kavanaugh fiasco was this lack of due process and this
Right.
breakdown of due process and just the basic understanding of law. And now we've seen the same thing in the Trump case where one of the most preposterous aspects of it was Mueller saying that we couldn't exonerate him, as if the purpose of American law and jurisprudence, prosecutors, is to investigate you until they find that you are free of sin, rather than charge you with a crime and have to prove it. I mean, that's just such an inversion of justice. And the fact that this is what we're getting from the left, I think, exposes them. I think that's Trump won't get anything done that you and I would probably think is good or really that beneficial for the country. But the one thing he's done is expose the left and sort of force them in a sense to expose themselves and unmask themselves as opponents of civil liberties, as total power lusters who will do anything to grab power, including frame people, lie, shut down their opponents. What we're seeing with the deplatforming that we've talked about so much, and the fact that if you disagree with them, you can have your bank taken away as well as your online presence.
Yeah.
These people have really been completely exposed.
Somebody said the other day, if you think that the market doesn't deal with monopolies, like just think of Blockbuster and Netflix and look how Netflix crushed Blockbuster. And I said in the response in the comments, I said, yeah, but Netflix didn't get deplatformed and debanked when they were competing with Blockbuster. Like nobody said, Netflix, you can't take credit cards anymore. Like imagine if someone had come along and Blockbuster had the political power to say, Netflix can't take credit cards. Do you think Netflix would have won? We'd still be sitting at Blockbuster, paying $25 in late fees every week.
Yeah, we don't have there's not a free market. But
so it's different nowadays.
I think in general, though, that's what's going to come. That's what's going to come out of the Trump presidency.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's good. I like I don't like that the media is so biased, but Trump can't do anything bad or corrupt or it's not possible. Yeah. So, do you have any funny Easter stories or anything before we go? Or
funny Easter stories?
With your kids? Just trying to think.
No.
I don't have any funny Easter stories either.
No, it was
mostly tame.
I think I did, and now I forgot. So, put me on the spot.
We're taking care of the class bunny this week. And
there's a class bunny, like a real bunny?
Yeah, like a real bunny. And it's spring break, so I volunteered that we would take care of the bunny.
Oh, God.
So we have the bunny at our house, and he's really nice, but I didn't know how much bunnies poop.
They really you have to clean their cages constantly.
They poop constantly. They are pooping machines.
No, if you ever think, don't get a rabbit.
Yeah,
anyone out there, if you're thinking about pets, don't get guinea pigs and rabbits. They're just
guinea pigs poop too.
Oh my God, just the worst. We finally got rid of them.
How'd you get rid of them?
Well, they took a ride to
oh my God.
to guinea pig heaven. No, we found a nice home for them, but our kids, before we didn't have. Now we have 2 dogs, but before dogs, on your way.
At least dogs can hold it and wait till they get outside.
Well, not until you train them. I mean.
Yeah, but I mean, cats and dogs. One of the reasons why they work for humans is that they just don't poop all over the place.
Right.
And you can actually control where they do that stuff. So the bunny has not pooped in my house, but it's just like the cage is outside, but I'm just watching it. Like it just eats poop. You put it down in the grass for 10 minutes of grass exercise and there's just a trail of poop behind it. Like it's just a pooping machine. And I have thought about getting a guinea pig or a bunny or something like that for my daughter for a while. And the only thing that's held me back is I have no idea how I would get rid of this thing. Once I get it, like I can't even throw out, some trinket from China without her freaking out, let alone a bunny.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it until she's ready.
Right.
For a real pet.
All right. Well, that's it for the first podcast back in business. I guess we'll do this next week, huh, Doug?
I think so.
All
We'll
right.
try.
Sounds good.
Thanks for listening to the House of Sunny podcast. Go check out Sunny on YouTube at her channel, House of Sunny. Everything Sunny does is fan-funded, and because she's likely to get kicked off and demonetized on every platform at some point, please support her over at patreon.com/House of Sunny. Become one of Sunny's elite squad and have access to behind-the-scenes footage, t-shirts, special events, and more.